How has AI changed experimentation?
Yeah, AI has been the biggest driver of change in experimentation I've seen in all my career. I can't believe more people aren't using prompt-based experimentation today.
Fred De Todaro is one of the world's most knowledgeable people on AI and experimentation. What company do you think is doing experimentation best?
I'm not going to choose the usual one like Netflix, Airbnb, Microsoft, and so on. I'm thinking about a company called Booking.com.
What are the biggest mistakes PMs make when it comes to experimentation?
I think the top three I hear the most about it will slow down.
How would you define the roles of PM, data scientist, and AI analyst?
The PM, the data scientists have to work together to make sure that the business context is there, the constraints are known.
How has AI changed experimentation over time?
If you look at the past, I think there has been two big waves in the hand. The machine learning wave, which started around 2016, and then the generative AI wave, which really kicked off in 2022.
What is the precise difference, and what exactly are these Bandit algorithms? Talk to me a little bit about content generation. Do you have any stories yourself that your team has used?
So content generation, so you take content on your website and then you ask the AI to come up with an alternative version of it, right? So that's the goal of content generation.
This is one of the coolest demos out there. Would you be willing to show us how this all works? Fred, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Fred, has AI really changed experimentation much?
Yeah, AI has been the biggest driver of change in experimentation I've seen in my career.
How has AI really changed experimentation?
Yeah, sure. So maybe let's take a step back for a second. So if you look at experimentation, well, it usually comes down to four simple steps. You have an idea, then you make an assumption. If you release that feature in production, it will increase by X that metric because of these reasons and these reasons, right? And then you build the experiment, the variations. Then you set up the targeting. Who are you going to target with that experiment? Is it all your users or a segment of users? And then the KPIs, which is an important step as well. How will you measure the success of that experiment? And then you look at the results, right? So it's a simple loop, right? So you iterate as long as you learn something with your experiments.
Okay, so there's 4 steps, and I imagine you're going to map this against how AI affects each of these 4 steps?
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the hardest part of experimentation, it has always been the build phase. Right? That's why over the past decade, most of the experimentation tools have been introducing some visual editor to build variations or to let anyone create some variations. Even dedicated feature experimentation vendors have been introducing them very recently. But the truth is, no one really delivered, on that premise today. Most tools still rely, a lot on developers. They are already busy, building the next features in your roadmap. And so as a result, most teams, do not A/B test the majority of what they deliver to their users. And they run meetings to just prioritize, the best experimentation that might be worth building. And then they wait 1 or 2 sprints to see anything go live.
Yeah, I think this is an important point, right? If we look at the life cycle of experimentation, between ideate, build, configure, and analyze, build is the bottleneck. That's kind of the tragedy, the commons that we're all facing, where very few teams are actually experimenting a high percentage of their releases. And it seems like that's the area where AI could be the most interesting. Before we get into that build phase, I want to talk a little bit about the idea phase, right? So we have here, it's a 3 out of 5 difficulty, perceived difficulty for folks. But how powerful can AI be in ideation?
Well, it can be powerful. When you look at the history, I think it has been possible during the generative AI wave. So back in 2022, you were able to ask an AI to give you some ideas, right? Limited to content generation at the beginning, but then since the release of the latest model of GPT, for instance, GPT-4, well, things have changed a lot. You can really ask the AI to come up with some ideas. You provide a page, and then the AI will try to come up with some ideas. And so this is where it started, right? Because the AI, to some extent, has or can assume some context. What's your business about? Who are you, your users? What is the framework what you use behind your website? Um, and so with all that context, then the ideas generation is possible. And so we'll see some of it later during the demonstration as well.
Okay, so I think that this is a really, really powerful set of techniques. Like the way I personally have been coaching people to deploy this, if they don't have it built into their experimentation tool, is what you want to do is you want to set up the AI with all that context that you mentioned, and you want to take advantage of the latest AI features. So I'll do something like either have a really strong prompt that has context on features we've shipped in the past, the reason we have certain messaging, the metrics that we have seen, or better yet, create something like a Claude or a ChatGPT project, depending on whatever AI you have access to at your work, that loads it up with all of this context so that you can then ask it the right questions and maybe even include like a screenshot of the image. It feels like the better the context you can engineer for the AI, the better the ideas it'll spit out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So in the build phase, there's obviously a lot that we can build with AI. People are probably familiar with, building with AI IDEs like Cursor or Windsurf, prototyping with AI prototyping tools like Lovable, Bolt, or Replit. But before we get there, we got to stay on this configure step, right? What is the right way to use AI to configure an experiment that you're going to do? Where should you, the human, be putting an input, and where should you be relying on the AI?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the role of a product manager is still absolutely critical there, and same for the data analyst or the data scientist. They are all working together and better in a way. As a product manager, well, your role is still to bring the business context that the AI does not have. Sometimes you need to deliver that feature for a customer. The AI does not have that context, right? The PM comes with all the internal constraints that the AI does not have. Why are we working on that idea? What is the assumption in the end, and what success will look like as well when you ship that feature? That's the job of the product manager, right? And then the data scientist is still there as well, and I think it is kind of the essential human in the loop, that you need when you need high confidence in the data that you are collecting in your experiments, or things like what is the right models to use. Is it RAG versus fine tuning model, and so on. So the data scientist is still very, very important, and is also going to challenge basically the AI's output, right? Is the data biased as well, to some extent? Are the results plausible? That's the job of the data scientist. So if I had to sum up, the AI makes, I would say, the whole experimentation process, faster and more accessible to the whole organization. For example, the AI can fully determine or identify patterns, and suggest some recommendations when an experiment is non-conclusive. You would normally do that, by digging into the data manually, or and it's not possible here. Beyond human scale, there are so many data points to crunch and so on. So the AI is fully capable to do that. But then, the human in the loop is very, very important, both at the product management level and I would say, at the data or data scientist level.
I think that really sums up very nicely the profiles that each person needs to take, right? So if I were to repeat it back, the product manager, they're going to be the person who's taking in all the context and helping to come up with the initial idea where they prove that context into an AI system. That AI system gives you some initial configuration options. The PM might sanity check that. And then the PM needs to bring in or work with the data scientist or have a process where a data scientist comes in and they're further challenging and hardening the assumptions. And so there's kind of two human in the loop steps, but the PM is really using the AI to make sure that that first version is strong.
Exactly, exactly. And then the AI can really build that variation for you, as long as you have, very good hypotheses and some metrics to on which you will back up your measurement there.
And then analysis of features. How would you define the roles of PM, data scientist, and AI analyst?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I think the AI is today fully capable to give you some a summary of what happened when that experiment was running for your users. It is also able to identify patterns, like if your experiment is not providing what you are expected. Sometimes by uh, uh, drinking down the data, by break down in the data by I don't know device type of users and so on, you will spot out some opportunities to do better, and that AI can do that for you. You don't have to do that anymore. There are some, many experimentation vendors who have released such capabilities as part of their offering, because there is nothing very complex there, and the human at that stage, does not have to be basically. Again, the PM, the data scientists have to work together to make sure that the business context is there, the constraints are known, and that the metrics on which you will measure the success of that experiment are clearly defined, and measurable as well. If you run an experiment but you are not able to measure the success, well, what's the point, right? And the AI will not help here. So again, both the PM and the data scientist and the AI now are working together and better in a way.
So, if we had to summarize here, in the ideate phase, sure, AI is doing some, but it's really just a co pilot. In the building phase, AI is getting to the phase, and we're seeing a future where AI can really dramatically do most of the build for you. And in the configure phase, again, AI can really dramatically do most of it with some human in the loop review.
Yes.
And then in the analysis phase, again, it can do most of the basics as long as you have predefined the right metrics, the right North Star, the right guardrails, the right secondary metrics. It can go ahead and look at those. And so it's really that ideate phase where humans need to stay super connected, but all these other steps, it feels like AI is going to be taking over most of the workload.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
So for PMs, product sense here and becoming a great experimenter and coming up with great ideas is really going to be the most important thing to becoming a great experimenter.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, if you look at what a product manager, does in the end, it identifies, features to improve the user experience, but also, the business, right? And so I don't think that what's preventing today PM to experiment is the lack of ideas. Usually they have already a long backlog of ideas to test there. For sure, AI can come and validate some of these ideas. You provide some context to that, and then the AI can tell you, yes, this idea has a high chance to succeed. Especially because when AI is fully connected to your, I call it the experimentation knowledge base, because maybe you have been running, tons of experiments by the past and so on. But AI can tell you, this thing has been tested already by the past. Here are the results, and maybe you did not know it because another team had run that experiment already by the past. And so the AI can also bring some context from history. I like to call it UX memory in a way, because you come up with an idea as a product manager, and then the AI will pop up there saying this thing has already been tested, and here are the results that were discovered at that time. Do you want to go and proceed with that idea, because maybe you can test it again. Your users may have been evolved, you have new behavior, your website has changed, and so on. So that's something really, really important that the AI can come as well with UX memory, which is very, very important.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jira Product Discovery. If you're like most product managers, you're probably in Jira, tracking tickets and managing the backlog. But what about everything that happens before delivery? Jira Product Discovery helps you move your discovery, prioritization, and even road mapping work out of spreadsheets and into a purpose-built tool designed for product teams. Capture insights, prioritize what matters, and create roadmaps you can easily tailor for any audience. And because it's built to work with Jira, everything stays connected from idea to delivery. Used by product teams at Canva, Deliveroo, and even The Economist. Check out why and try it for free today at Atlassian.com/product-discovery. That's Atlassian.com/product-discovery. Jira Product Discovery. Build the right thing. Today's episode is brought to you by the AIPM certification on Maven. Run by Mikdad Jaffer, who is a product leader at OpenAI, this is not your typical course. It's 8 weeks of live, cohort-based learning with the leader at one of the top companies in tech. OpenAI just doesn't stop shipping, and this is your chance to learn how. Run along with product faculty and Mo Ali, the course has a 4.9 rating with 133 reviews. Former students come from companies like OpenAI, Shopify, Stripe, Google, and Meta. The best part? Your company can probably cover the cost. So if you want to get $500 off, use my code AAKASH25 and head to maven.com/product-faculty. That's maven.com/product-faculty. I want to dive into that in a little bit in a second, but before we get there, let's take the historical point of view on this. How would you break this down historically? How has AI changed experimentation over time?
Yeah, if you look at the past, I think there has been two big waves in the end. The machine learning wave, which started around 2016. So we started to see some machine learning, algorithm coming out. And then the generative AI wave, which really kicked off in 2022. And so if you look at the machine learning phase, I think AI helped, removed some key bottlenecks like, finding the right users to target with AI targeting, for instance, or allocating traffic to the best variant. And we saw multi-arm Bandit, contextual Bandit, being released there, and analyzing results as well. You don't have to use generative AI to analyze to some extent some results. Some machine learning can do that as well for you. And so they have all been designed to some extent to help teams optimize, I would say, faster and adapt in real time, right? And then there has been the generative AI wave, and that changed, everything there. We saw the rise of content generation, to quickly create some copy variations. Because at the beginning, I think models were, only good at this, to be honest. So many vendors, outside of the experimentation world, started to include content generation. If you go to Notion, you had, generate that content for me. I want something more fun, blah blah blah. So you started to see this kind of features being released in any tool. Then AI assistant as well started to pop up. Often RAG based. They help answer any question, interpret results, or support users inside the platform. So that was 1 year later, and more recently, especially at the end of 2023, things are still accelerating so much. I mean, with GPT-4o, it was a new paradigm and new model. Like again, GPT-4 changed what people thought. Even was even possible, and suddenly, vibe coding became a mainstream. Like 9 months ago, vibe coding became mainstream there, and I mean, if you look at experimentation, uh, it changes everything as well, because it means that you can turn any idea into a running experiment just by prompting an AI. And that's why at Kameleoon we released prompt-based experimentation, so that anyone in the organization, HR, finance, product manager, could directly come up with an idea. I want to improve that there. You provide that prompt to an AI, and then the AI will come up with variation and an experiment that you can directly test in minutes, and not anymore in a sprint or two sprints, depending on your organization velocity.
So let's take a step by step on some of these for people now that we got the broad stroke of how things go, right? In the beginning, we use AI to improve targeting. Can you say a little bit more about this? Is this about AI selectively showing which person gets which experience, or how do you use AI correctly in targeting?
Yeah, so AI targeting. So the main purpose of AI targeting is to predict, what you will do, right? So let's say you browse a website, the AI is fully capable to give you a score, which is a kind of conversion intent, like what is your likelihood to convert. And so with AI targeting, we kind of try to replicate what a sales does. When someone enters a shop, a good sales will understand if you are about to buy or not, depending on how you are dressed, how you move in the shop, what kind of products you look at, and so on. The sales will score you. And so we try to reproduce that behavior on the web. So as soon as a visitor lands on a website, and depending on what you do, what you consult, and so on, the AI will score you, and then customers can use that directly to target the right users instead of creating a segment manually. You will just use the score which is provided by the AI. So it changes everything in terms of at the configure stage where you set up the segment you want to target with that experiment. Well, you don't do that anymore. You just use the score from the AI. It's very similar to multi-hand bandit or contextual bandit, but the role or the purpose is a little bit different.
I think this is actually really powerful, and I want people to look at the left side of the screen. I want people to look at these older things because these are actually probably the most mature and, in my opinion, probably really strong to just use in production, right? So, if I'm understanding this correctly, right, this is these old school machine learning models, which are essentially really strong gradient descent algorithms, really strong regression models, which are looking at the user behavior to say, okay, this is the user that maybe is very high intent to churn off. So maybe we should give them a higher coupon to keep them here, or give them something to keep them here. Or maybe they're looking at their behavior and saying, this is a user who is almost ready to purchase. So maybe we should just help them get on to their purchase right away. So it's really about in sort of real time, based on the user behavior, you can rank your users and you can show them personalized experiences.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Many customers have been using that for, showing coupon to the right users. So I'm sure, every time you visit a website, you always have that pop-up that comes there, providing you 10% straight away. Well, instead of doing that, maybe you should, keep that 10% there and provide it to, the users who have, that are in need of that percentage of discount to buy, to go to the next step and buy. So but that is the main goal of AI targeting.
Love it. And you said it's adjacent and similar to multi-arm bandit and contextual bandit. I feel like I want to really tease this out for everyone listening. What is the precise difference and what exactly are these bandit algorithms?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at a standard A/B test, usually your goal is to know if variant B actually improves a specific metric, and so you split your traffic equally, and then you weight a sample size, and then you have enough data, you can make your decision, right? With multi-hand bandit, the focus is on performance. So the AI will gradually allocate, more traffic to I would say the best performing variant based on the data you have at that time, right? But there is a trade-off. I mean, I like multi-arm bandit there, but there is a trade-off. You lose some accuracy in the data because the AI starts, making some decisions based on a smaller sample, which is fine. I mean, to some extent, in some use cases, it makes a lot of sense, like in the media, where you need usually to know sometimes within a day which article headline drives more, I would say, clicks or engagement. So you don't care that much about the accuracy. Your goal is to make sure that you push the best headline to all your users. So that's multi-hand bandit. Contextual bandit on the other hand is a little bit different. You have a bunch of variation, like let's say 10, 100 of variation, and your goal is to push, variation one to the group of users that prefer version one, and you push version two to the segment of users that are in love with that variation. So your goal is to learn and adapt. So it's still based on machine learning algorithm, and so the goal is really to push the best variant to each individual user.
So it sounds like if you have something highly time sensitive and you're okay with potentially slightly less confidence in the results, go for one of these multi-arm contextual bandit type things.
Yes.
And within those, can you just tease out really carefully so that I understand it? What's the difference between multi-armed and contextual?
What's the difference? Sorry, you said?
Between a multi-armed bandit and a contextual bandit.
Contextual bandit. So multi-arm bandit, your goal is to push the best variant to all users, right? With contextual bandit, you push to each user the variation that is the most performing for them. So in the end, it's like having a website which is fully personalized. Every user will not see exactly the same offering, the same content. So that's highly advanced. I'd like to say it's more tailored for personalization, where your goal again is to adapt the content based on each user preference in the end.
So when should you be using which? Like, which industries, which types of organizations should have the headspace of using one or the other?
I think media, as I said, for multi-arm bandit makes a lot of sense because usually, you don't want to run an experiment on the headlines or article titles. Your goal is to, go with the best one as soon as possible. Contextual bandit appeals to any kind of industry. If you have, let's say coupon, for instance, you have 10%, 20%, and 30%. Well, you let the AI push right percentage depending on each user. So that's one usage of contextual bandit as well. Or if you have, uh, you know, multiple home pages with different contents and so on, and your goal is not to A/B test or to know which homepage is the best. Your goal is to push the best homepage to each individual user. So you are really, you know, in the hyper personalization way of seeing experimentation here.
It sounds like probably your e-commerce and those types of things are doing a lot more contextual bandit where they have a lot more users, the ability to personalize maybe your social media, and probably more your B2B type of things are using more multi-armed where they just have one experience that they can refer to. Is that a high level fair or is there what is the nuance to that?
Yeah, what that's for sure is that you need a lot of traffic for both usually because again, as you need to make decisions very fast, you need a lot of traffic, right? If you have less than 100K, I would say, of visitors, per month, maybe that's not the best approach there. But when you look at media, they have millions of visitors every month, so that's not a problem at all, right? And for contextual bandit, as the goal again is to learn and act based on that learning. Well, you need to learn a lot of behaviors before starting to push variation one to that user or variation two to that user. So it appeals to customers with some significant amount of traffic in the end.
All right. And then let's marinate a little bit on this opportunity detection. This was happening right at the end of the machine learning wave. What does this enable you to do in your experimentation?
Yeah, so the reason we've built or we've seen this kind of feature is because if you look at the broad statistic of experimentation, well, less than 20% of them are successful, meaning that when you ship that feature, well, uh, 20% of the time it will increase the metric that you want to improve that with that experiment. And so most of the time when that happens, you see a lot of data analysts, trying to drill down into the data to understand why it happens and to see if there is an opportunity to do better. Because in the end, maybe that variation does not work for all of your users, but maybe if you drill down, you start to understand that maybe that feature works well for mobile devices users. And so instead of doing that manually, AI opportunity detection does that automatically. As soon as an experiment, is non-conclusive, it is showing a downlift on a metric, then that AI will start crunching the data and point out some opportunities to do better. Like again, this variation is performing well on mobile devices. And maybe if you personalize the experience for mobile device users and you show that variation, you will increase the performance. of your website and ultimately the revenue of your website. So that's the main goal of AI opportunity detection. It's trying to spot out some opportunities to do better.
Yeah, if 80% of what you're shipping isn't going to hit your metrics, you want to make sure that you're still learning
Exactly.
something from that 80%. And so this is really going to help you in that step. Before we dive deeper, let's talk about something every PM faces: getting alignment on product decisions. You know that feeling when you're trying to explain a user flow to engineering or justify a design choice to leadership and you're just describing it with your hands? That's where Mobbin comes in. Mobbin is the world's largest library of real world mobile and web app designs from industry leading apps like Airbnb, Uber, and Pinterest. Instead of spending hours taking screenshots or hunting for inspiration, you can instantly find exactly how successful products handle onboarding, paywalls, checkout flows, whatever you're facing. Over 1.7 million product builders use Mobbin to benchmark against best-in-class products and show their teams proven solutions. Whether you need to convince stakeholders there's a better way to handle user activation or research how top apps approach feature discovery, Mobbin gives you the visual proof to back up your product decisions. Check out mobbin.com/Akash. That's mobbin.com/AAKASH and get 20% off your first year. Today's episode is brought to you by Maven. The problem with most courses online, like Udemy, is there's no live component, and the instructors aren't experts in their fields, they're professors. At Maven, you get direct live access to experts and operators from the world's best tech companies. You can't get that access anywhere else, in any university, and you usually can't find them on YouTube either. I've featured so many of Maven's experts in the newsletter and podcast for that reason. To help you out, I've put together a collection of courses I recommend at maven.com/x/Akash. This includes courses like AI prototyping for PMs, product sense for PMs, and getting an AI PM certification. Visit it now at maven.com/x/AAKASH. Talk to me a little bit about content generation. I'm curious, do you have any stories yourself that your team has used where AI content generation has led to a win?
Yeah, we see that a lot. So content generation. So basically you take content on your website and then you ask the AI to come up with an alternative version of it. Right. So that's the goal of content generation. So we have seen users, putting that kind of experiment when they try to they create some pop-ups, for instance, or some messaging for banners and so on. They want to make sure that they have the best, performing content. And so they use AI for that. They will generate a content there to make sure that, again, they increase the engagement. Because sometimes, you know, uh, you come up with a version and you like to, engineer that with a prompt. You're asking, give me a better version for that goal. I'm sure everybody is doing it today. Even myself, I'm doing it every day. I go and I say, okay, I'm doing a podcast with Akash. Can you provide me, the best thing I should say there? And so I provide my content, and then I generate that. I have a AI will generate something which is appealing for a podcast.
Love it. Talk to me about RAG Assist.
Yeah, Ragasis. So this is the era of chatbot, basically. So we have that in our tool today. So the idea is to have an AI that users can interact with to get answers to anything like I have that experiment there. Tell me what is the best I don't know stat engine to use for that experiment. We know that it is increasingly complicated. You have frequentist, Bayesian, sequential testing, and so on. So users are like, okay, which one should I choose? And so you can go and talk with that AI there. The AI will ask some context like, okay, what is that experiment about? Blah blah blah, and then the AI will tell you for that experiment there you should use Cupid, for instance, because I know that you have some history of data on the metric you want to improve. If you use that, you can decrease the duration of your experiment by maybe 2 weeks. So that's the main goal of AI Assist. We've seen also that kind of feature being very useful for generating some code. For instance, some of our customers do put in place some feature flags. Well, it's very annoying to look at the documentation because you have a lot of methods to look at and so on. So you can go and talk with that AI and say, okay, I have this feature there. I want to release it behind the feature flags. I want to variabilize some behavior of a feature. Well, provide me with a code. And so you can directly go and interact with that AI, but will generate some steps to put in place by using some SDKs, so that you can go with your feature flags as soon as possible. So that's
This is
RAG.
huge. I feel like this is like the co-pilot, right?
Exactly.
This is all about, especially if it's built into your experimentation platform, you being able to converse with it. Now, you dropped two pieces of experimentation knowledge there that people's ears probably perked up on, and I want to at least give them the quick overview on. So you talked about frequentist and Bayesian statistics. So can you unpack that for us first?
Yeah, sure. So there are usually two, methods to kind of analyze the experiment. So we look at, the statistical confidence of the results you are looking at, because an experiment is basically um, a statistic experiment. You take a decision based on the data that you have at one point of time, and so you can use a frequentist approach, which is usually what most of the users will use. This is the default statistical engine there. Then there is the Bayesian, which gives you a probability. That variation has 80% chance of being better than the original or the control. So it's like having two schools here. Some will love Bayesian, some will love frequentist. What we see is that usually 90% of the market, they go with frequentist there. And then you have Cupid, which is another statistical method, which is very powerful, especially if you have a lot of returning users in the B2B, for instance, industry. That's very powerful because it takes some data as an input, so that when you start your experiment, you actually have 2 weeks of metrics already available. And so ultimately, it means that you can get some results much faster than if you start from scratch. So they are all designed to answer a specific case. But in the end, your goal is to make sure that you are taking the decision with the best accuracy. And so all these statistical engines are, very powerful and very known by our customers and users in the experimentation industry.
And it's Cupid, Cuped,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
All right. So, one of the coolest things that you talked about as you were previewing the Gen AI wave was how the vibe coding has really changed experimentation. Can you unpack this further? What has vibe coding enabled with experimentation?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what vibe coding really has unlocked is this ability to take a product idea from a concept to a live prototype, and in just a few hours, right? So it helps you build things, faster, and I love it. I mean, I think, all using, vibe coding in the product management ecosystem today, like Lovable or Bolt. You have your idea and you get a prototype that you can then test with your users. But as a product manager, my goal isn't to just build and deliver faster. It's to learn faster, right? You want to make sure that when you ship that feature, you are able to learn some insights, so that you are sure that that feature is actually being used and increases I would say the user experience, but also the business outcomes, which are also very, very important there. And so that's important because that way, I can kill features, I can drop the features that don't bring any value to my users or to the business. So that's what vibe coding unlocked. You go from an idea to a prototype that you can test with all your users. But the real question to me isn't can you build it? It's really should you build it, right? And so that's why experimentation is very important, because experimentation answers that question there. Should you build that feature or not? And so that vibe coding won't help that much with that. Well, for sure, you can test this prototype very quickly, and again, it's outstanding and so on. So you can test that with a few users, and that's very great. But the truth is, you will only really know, and I want to say that loud here, if it works. You will only know if it works when that feature will be going live, to all your users. Because I've seen it so many times. I mean, users say they want something, they say they like it when you show a prototype, and then once you launch it to everybody, you launch it broadly, well, nothing happens, right? And I'm sure you've got that as well as a
Yes.
PM by the past. And so prompt-based experimentation sits right at the crossroad of vibe coding and experimentation. Well, we actually call it internally vibe experimenting, because you can read the same concept in the end. You can test ideas in minutes just by prompting the AI, and you do it right from your website or your web application. You don't do it, from a blank page. You go to your website, you prompt your idea, then the AI will generate, that feature or that variation, and then you can test it directly with all your users. So you get basically the best of both worlds here. The speed and creativity that is provided by, I would say, vibe coding, with prototyping, but directly from with your web apps. And I would say the structure, or maybe the discipline of real testing to make the right product calls, right? You are sure that when you get the data about that experiment, you know or you do not know if that feature will improve your metric. And so this is very, very important.
For my money, this is one of the coolest demos out there. Would you be willing to show us how this all works?
Yeah, sure. So let's say I want to create an experiment on this shop here. So it is, classic shop. You have some products there. I have a catalog. I have some products I can see. I have some pagination there. I can then click there and see the product and add to cart that product. Right. So what I can do there is directly prompt my ideas by using Kameleoon. So I'm going to do that directly from our product. So the way it works here, you create a new experiment, then you have a choice here by prompt, you give it a name. Live, I will select my website here, then a page I want to optimize, and then you create it. Then your website will open directly there. And so you have, very similarly to what you can see with GPT, you have on the right side, a UI that allows you to prompt any changes, right? So what I can do here, so let's say I want, for instance, to change the sort here, and instead of having it ordered alphabetically, I want to order it, price high to low or price low to high. So what I can do here is that I can directly prompt that with a simple prompt, which would be this one here. So I can say, okay, change the default sorting option to price low to high. And then you hit that button there, and then the AI will start, extracting all the context, it gets from that page here. So what is the framework behind? Where is the sorting, being defined there? As you can see here, I haven't selected anything. I'm not saying, change the default sorting option to price low to high. The sort is there. Here are the default options which are currently available. I'm not providing anything there because the AI is fully capable to understand what I want to do, to localize, where the sorting is being done on the website, and then, it is starting to share, what the AI is going to do. So where is the target element there? So you can see that, the element. So he has found that element there. Then what the AI has to do, what kind of behavioral changes it has to put in place, the JavaScript, because that thing will generate in the hands some CSS, some JavaScript, depending on your prompt, the CSS impact, accessibility will be there as well. So the AI is not only, building that blindly, it is going to do every check, like, okay, is this thing also available on mobile? I know that, it has to be accessible as well. So I don't have to break that when I will generate the code. So all that context is, taken from the website. So you can see that the JavaScript is, has started to be generated there. And maybe, but I'm not even sure here, some CSS will be provided. No, no visual changes required. And so you can see there that, the price, the sorting has been updated, price
And
to
this was
high.
totally live, folks.
It
Like,
is live.
that just happened in 2 minutes. So it went through all those systematic steps. Seems like it very much reminded me of like a chain of thought reasoning model where it showed you, okay, these are the 5 things we're gonna do. It went ahead and did those correctly, and boom, like this is vibe experimenting.
Exactly. So it's straight from your website. It's not a prototype which is created. I can ship that experiment straight away. I can go there and I can say, okay, I want to finalize that, or I can even simulate. So it's like generating a preview, but I can then share with other stakeholders. But if I want to ship that feature live, I just have to hit that finalize button there, and then
Seems like amazing for a small team, right? Where a PM might be empowered to go ahead and ship those changes. What is the right workflow at a bigger company where you have designers and engineers? How should you stage gate this properly?
Yeah, I think, I mean, what's important here is that, execution is definitely much faster. As you can see here, in 2 minutes, boom, I have something that may have taken maybe 3 days to build because I would have to provide a mockup to, I would have to ask a designer to provide a mockup. Then that mockup is going to be, delivered to engineers with, specification documents, and then it lands, in a sprint. If you are lucky that the sprint hasn't started, and it's good. Otherwise, you will have to wait that sprint to be to be ended, and so you ended up waiting, 3 to 4 weeks before that experiment goes live. Here, in two
Always.
minutes, I have that experiment live, and so execution is definitely much faster, as I said, with PBX. But that does not mean that you can break everything and you can skip collaboration there. What I think works best here is keeping the same checkpoints in the hand that you would have in a normal product process, but you are just keeping them lighter and much faster. Before launching, I can generate that simulation link here, so you have that CTA there, which I will be able to provide to all stakeholders. The designer can check if the variation, fits the brand and the UX. If you are, shipping something, we'll see, some advanced experiments maybe later. But if you are shipping something, with significant changes and so on, the designer can check everything: the brand, the UX, the style. Engineers can jump in and directly look at the code. So we haven't seen that in the previous screen, but I can click on the JavaScript section and then I see the code. And so the engineers can look at what has been generated by the AI, and the data team here can directly, look at this part here, when they can see, okay, what are the goals? What are we going to measure there? Is it the add to cart? Is it the number of orders? So they can directly look at the metrics which are there, and they can say, okay, this metric is good, or this one will be missing, and maybe you need to configure that as well. So that's really important there. Uh, and so, as we've seen, the great thing here is, everything is built directly on your website. So you can directly test everything. You can check, do the reviews directly based on the real thing, not on specification or mockups. You will see, the designer will see, the engineer will see exactly what your users will see when the experiment, goes live into production. So that makes a total change here.
And how many times have we seen a huge disconnect between the PRD, the Figma, and what actually gets shipped to production? This is really allowing you access to, okay, this is what we're about to ship to production. What changes do we need to make from a design point of view or from an engineering scalability point of view? And I think that the AI is super powerful. What else can it do besides text prompts? Can it take in sketches?
Exactly. So let me show you that. So I'm going to open an experiment which I've created just before here. So if you look at the experiment there, so there are some tools as well. So if I want to start from a mockup, I can directly import that mockup there. So let's say you have a new layout with 2 products per row instead of 4. You are adding a drop down and so on. You can directly, upload that mockup there and say to the AI, build that variation for me. And again, you don't have to provide a lot of context there as well. You can sketch as well. So you can use the sketch feature to build some pop-ups if you want. So you can do everything there. So you can say I want an image. Sorry, because I'm very bad at drawing. Okay.
Better than me.
Very hard with mouse there. So you can put a
Yeah,
field.
impossible.
Exactly. And then you said, okay, build, that newsletter pop-up. So of course you need to provide a little bit of context there. What is the purpose of that experiment there? If you don't do that, the AI will come up with some questions as well. Do you want to generate an image for me? I can maybe show you one that I've built here so that you can see the output. All right. So you can see here, so same story, use this sketch to build a newsletter pop-up with the left column, then the AI, is coming back to me saying, okay, in order to complete this task, you need to provide, the missing information. What kind of image do you want to do? So I said, generate one for me. I want, a basketball player wearing shoes. So the AI will provide me, 2 images. I can choose one, with a white background or the black background. And then same story, the reasoning will be, shared with you. And then you end up with some JavaScript there and some CSS. And then you have, something there. So sorry, because there is a sketch there on top of that. So that's what the AI built here. So from that prompt and from that sketch there. So you can see that I draw some lines there. I understood that there is some inputs, which, will allow the user to share the email, and so on. I can go from a mockup as well. So same story here. I've provided a mockup, and then that's the output there. So the mockup add more information, like why should you join, that newsletter. So same story, it has built the whole behavior there. So you can do, you can create some elements that do not exist, like pop-ups, banners. You can completely change the layout. So as soon as it is able to do it, front-end side, you can build some onboarding flows. I know that product managers love as well to put some flows and to point out some features. You can also do that very graphically with that AI there. So it can build everything.
That's amazing, right? This is the power of what you've been playing with in your AI prototyping tools, but it's actually happening in context in your experimentation system. It is configuring the experiment for you. It is even coming up with your hypothesized variables, all the steps we talked about: ideate, build, configure, analyze. It can help you with all 4 of those. But interestingly, right, that build one that we talked about, that one that really is causing all the troubles, where people are too reliant on developers, it is just completely obliterating that step.
Exactly. You can see here that last example maybe where I have asked the AI to add some quick view and some add to cart actions directly from the product listing. So these features were not there, so the AI has been adding them there, so I can have access to the quick view. I can add that product to the cart. I have asked the AI to add a little notification as well, and then you can iterate. By prompting with the AI, I can say that notification there. Maybe you should have a reminder of the product that has been added to the cart, if it makes sense. So you can really iterate with that AI. It's just not one prompt. You can add many prompts until you come up with the best version that you want to ship with your features, with your users. Sorry.
All right, so that about covers this amazing change that we've seen in AI affecting experimentation across all features. Now, can you break down for us the second side of this topic? How do we measure and experiment AI features themselves?
Yeah, I think there are some key indicators that you have to look at. Well, the first one is the usage or the adoption. Are people using your feature? The second one is the outcome. Is that feature, fixing the problem, users came for, or is it helping them, complete more tasks faster, they activate more experiments and so on. And the last one is the experience. Once the feature is live, well, you want to ask users, the feedback about it. And usually we see, in AI features, the quick thumbs up, down that you see everywhere, because this is one of the only way to get, feedbacks about, is the answer provided by the AI accurate, or is it missing some context there? So very, very important to, to include them as well. And if we look at what we are following with prompt-based experimentation, it is not just about usage. It's about how quickly our users can go from an idea to a learning, right? Because in the end, this is ultimately the main goal of experimentation. So we look at things like, how many prompts it takes to create an experiment. Well, if it's too many, something is off. Maybe, the AI is not providing, the piece of code or the variation that the user wants there. The second thing is, how long it takes from the first prompt to an experiment live. Very important as well. If it is faster than any other methods, but that's a big win for us, right? Instead of taking days, maybe you took 5 minutes to put in production your experiment. And the last one, which is also very important for us, is how often developers still need to step in. If you look at the past, before prompt-based experimentation, I would say that maybe 80% or more of the experiments needed code. That's the truth, the reality of our market. If we drop that number to, let's say, 20%, which is our target at Kameleoon, well, we know it is, a massive game changer for the industry, because we haven't seen that, anywhere else in the last decade. So those are the metrics we do follow. And so again, it's not only about usage, it's about the value that we want to generate to our users. The feature needs to allow them to run, experiment faster, to get to learning faster, and so on.
I love this. It's almost structured as like the whys, the 5 whys, right? Are people using it? Is it solving the problem? Was it helpful or reliable? And then translate that to your experiment like you've done with prompt-based experimentation. I'm curious, what was the North Star metric you guys looked at, and how did you determine the North Star metric for success?
Yeah, it's a good question. So at Cameroon, we look at the number of experiments, which run daily on our platform. So we have been following that for, many years. We came up with that North Star metric because it is, simple to follow, to measure. We don't have to ask a data scientist to get access to that metric. And the second reason is that it is very easy to anyone in the organization, right? It's not something very complex, very specific to a product team and so on. The number of experiments that run daily. That's the metric we look at, because we know that, when there is a drop on that metric, it means that there is some churn at Cameroon. It means that we have less customers, creating campaigns every day. And if it goes up, it means that either, we are increasing the business with new customers, or we have, more and more users creating experiment. And so this is critical for prompt-based experiments because, again, our goal is to have more users, creating experiments so that it is not only limited to a team of users, it is not only limited to product teams or to engineering teams. We really want to democratize experiments as part of the organization. And so the more experiments are created, well, the better it is. It means that, prompt-based experimentation is delivering on the promise, which is again to be able to have an idea to an experiment in minutes and not days or weeks, as it is in most organizations today.
So I think there's a lot of hidden takeaways there for people listening. The first is the North Star metric you chose is basically your business's overall North Star metric. You're not just choosing some random North Star metric specifically for this AI feature or experiment. If it's a big AI swing, you want it to just move the whole business. The second thing is that you didn't choose like a revenue oriented feature. You actually chose a product input metric that you guys can change but that you know is highly correlated with impacts on your output metrics like revenue. Are those fair takeaways?
Exactly, because with that North Star metric, well, everyone can, play the same rules of the game. If you look at product teams, they can improve features that drive it forward. That's why we, introduced prompt-based experimentation. It's a product initiative as well. And I know that my product, managers can deliver on that and increase that North Star metric. Customer success as well. Customer success can, help users get more value out of the product. And their goal is to increase the North Star metric because if they have happy customers, if they know how to use the product, well, they will ultimately create more experiments. Marketing can also work, in publishing some benchmark per industry, per market, so that our customers can compare with each other. So every I would say department, divisions in the organization work towards improving that North Star metric. It's not just revenue because revenue, well, you can't all act on that metric. It's very hard in the end. But if we, you know, find an North Star metric which is highly correlated to revenue, and that can be again uh, actionable, we say actionable by any team, that's something that can change the face of an organization there because everybody is moving into the same direction in the end.
So that's how you measure kind of a game changer feature like PBX. It's really changing the way people use your platform. Talk to us a little bit about how you measure RAG systems.
Yeah, so rack system. So again, this is what is usually powered behind this assistant there. So same story. I think it's very important to look at some business-oriented metrics there. Adoption, the usage, the outcome, the experience, and then I think there are also some technical metrics to look at. And at Kameleoon, we have been looking at them before, shipping that feature into production. Uh, and I mean, there are three things we look at Kameleoon, and I think it can be applied to any organization using a RAG system there. The accuracy, is the answer really based on some documentation that do exist? For instance, if someone asks how is traffic, split in a multi on Bandit, and if the AI answers, well, traffic is always split evenly across all variants, well, that's a miss, right? So
Yep.
that's a bad answer in terms of accuracy. Relevance is very important as well. So relevance is all about, does it actually answer the user's question? For instance, if I ask something like, what are ways to target feature flags, or what are the different options there, and the AI will answer saying you need to create a new experiment. Well, it's a miss as well. It is not answering the targeting logic or the targeting part of the experiment creation. And the last one is the context quality. Where the documents or documentation it used really helpful. If it pulls some outdated documentation or some, or not the most recent, I would say, release notes, well, something is off as well there. So these are good signals to me to check if the AI is giving answers you can trust. Okay. Now, I just wanted to end on something. There are also, if you look at what we've been doing at Kameleoon, if I can say something as well there, one method which works well, because I'm sure people will ask, okay, but how do I do that? How do I make sure that, accuracy, relevance, and so on, is good? One method we've seen working at Kameleoon is to use, a LLM, so a learning language model, as a judge, right? So you have a judge which will judge the performance of your RAG system. So, for instance, here for the response relevance, which is again how well does the chatbot answer, match the user's question. One method is to use an LLM which will generate three new questions based on the answer which is provided by the first LLM. So, for instance, if I say, how do I enable AI targeting in Kameleoon? And the chatbot answers me, you need to go to the experiment settings, enable the AI targeting toggle, and save. That's a good answer, right? And so the LLM the alternative LLM, as a judge, you ask him to generate free questions based on that answer. Like, where do I find the AI targeting setting? Or how do I activate AI targeting? And so these questions are very similar to the question being asked by the user. So it means that, the relevance is there. And so you can do that, for the metrics and the retrieved context as well, context relevance, the scoring, the LLM can score the answer as well. You can do that with the accuracy. Um, that's what works well today, I think.
So it's that combination of looking at faithfulness, relevance, context quality, operationalizing those into metrics for you, and then building a good eval suite, potentially using an LLM as judge to look at things like response and relevance, context relevance, faithfulness. That's the overall recipe for measuring an AI feature. Are there any big mistakes you see teams making while measuring these AI features?
Yeah, I guess one of the biggest mistake is, to stop at usage because, most of what we see is when, some users will complain about, an AI feature, will just stop using it, right? So, I mean, usage is one piece of a cake here, but you need to look at the outcome and the user experience. And so, some of the insights I've been sharing there are pretty useful for you as well there.
Amazing. Before you go, I have a experimentation expert here with us. So I have a couple questions for you. First, what company do you think is doing experimentation best?
Yeah, so I'm not going to choose the usual one like Netflix, Airbnb, Microsoft, and so on. I'm thinking about, a company called Booking.com, very known as well. And, they've built such a strong, I would say, culture of experimentation. Nothing goes live into production, whether you are, shipping feature on your website, on your application, on your mobile application, they do everything through experimentation. So I think it's a great model for any company that wants to learn fast and build with confidence.
And I think they test almost everything, right? So they've really built that experimentation culture from the top.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
And I think that's incredibly rare, but it's incredibly common amongst winning companies.
Yeah, yeah. And my advice, I think, just to not scare every people there, I think it's not have don't you don't have to go all in one and test everything from day one. At Kameleoon, we have been going step by step on this topic, even at Kameleoon. So we are also shipping feature, experimenting with them, and so on. And I think you have to start simple at the beginning. If you are not doing any experimentation today, well, first use feature flags just to push code safely into production. At least you have a turn on off. You can see how it goes into production. Then you introduce what we call progressive rollouts or targeted delivery, where you ship the feature to, let's say, 20% of your users or to a segment of users, and then you learn from that, right? So you learn from the usage. Are they using that feature? Are they complaining about the user experience? And then you improve that feature before releasing it to every single user. And once you're ready, then you start, adding some A/B testing there to make data-driven, decisions at scale. And I mean, I do believe that people have been putting barriers because of the high build cost. So that's why I think with AI, that thing is going to be removed, so that you can hopefully, going to push more things behind experiments as well, because you are able to ship them, without having to bother your developer teams.
Yeah, AI is a game changer to becoming a company like Booking. You have no excuse at this point. What are the biggest mistakes PMs make when it comes to experimentation?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there are mistakes, but there are some common misconceptions there about experimentation. And I put three of them here, but there are others, of course. And I think the top three I hear the most about is it will slow down our delivery. The second one is we don't have enough traffic there, or because you do product discovery, well, I'm fine. I've learned a lot from product discovery, so why should I bother with experimentation? And so none of these objections for me are perfectly true. I mean, experimentation actually helps team build better products. There are many studies about it. There is one which I like to talk about, which is one being done by Harvard Business Review, which basically says this: there is a direct correlation between the number of experiments you run annually and your revenue growth. That's a fact, right? So the more you experiment, the faster you can grow there. So if we look at all of these objections there are, I think the first one, well, actually, it speeds things up. It's not slowing, it's not slowing things down there. With experimentation, you can release, as I said, early versions of your feature. You can learn from, real users, using that feature, and then you improve as you go, right? That way you get to the right feature faster in the end. So you don't have to work on the best feature before shipping it. You ship the first version of it, you iterate with it, you learn, and then you ship the final version to all your users. Like I always say to my own team, fast gets, good quicker than good get fast. So the key message here is that you do not wait for the perfect feature. You ship early and you iterate until you reach, your goal. You will learn so much more in a short period of time that if you don't do experimentation there. The second one, very quickly here, well, it's always a little bit funny to me because teams are often fine validating features with just a few users. They have a prototype, they go and show that prototype to 10 users, and then they think that all their users will love the feature. All right. So why it is a problem with experimentation there? So it doesn't make any sense to me there. And the traffic is one point. The number of conversions is also very important when you look at the sample size you need. You need a good number of visitors, but you also need to look at the metric. The more conversion you have, the fastest you will get some insights about your experiment. And the last one, product discovery is enough. Um, I would rather say that discovery and experimentation go hand in hand. Discovery gives you early signals. That's a fact. That's why it's very, very important to do some product discovery. Uh, you know, but experimentation will tell you exactly what users do when they interact with that feature. So product discovery will tell you what users say they want. Experimentation tell you what they actually do. So very important for me to have both so that you get the full picture in production there.
Amazing. This episode, our complete course on AI experimentation, is coming out an episode after our complete course on AI discovery with Teresa Torres. I think it's the perfect combo of content, perfect ending for our episode today. Fred, this has truly been a masterclass. If people want to find more, if they want to connect with you, where should they go?
Well, directly on LinkedIn. Directly on LinkedIn, I will answer on most of the question I got.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So if you want to learn more about how to shift to this way of working, check out our full conversation on Apple or Spotify podcasts. And if you want the actual documents that we showed, the tools and frameworks and public links, be sure to check out my newsletter post with all of the details. Finally, thank you so much for watching. It would really mean a lot if you could make sure you are subscribed on YouTube, following on Apple or Spotify podcasts, and leave us a review on those platforms. That really helps grow the podcast and support our work so that we can do bigger and better productions. I'll see you in the next one.